Hey, what's going on, roleplayers? It's that Bard here, and welcome back to the corner. And today's topic is all about morals, both in and out of game. All too often, you'll say, "But my character is lawful good," or "My character is neutral evil," or "My character is some other variant on the axis." But as soon as you start playing, you know, the group tends to agree on one specific course of action, and you undertake quests and you do other various adventures, and all of that concept of alignment goes out the window. There's no real depth to the mechanic anymore. Before, it used to mean something. At least it had a token gesture, but now it seems to be just like a relic of the past, something that's just been included because it's always been there, like a homage to the olden days. I think for people who really want to explore their character, who want to explore their morals, explore their sense of values, I think you could take a leaf out of some other games. And the one that I'm going to recommend is 2nd edition Vampire the Masquerade. Vampire does this amazing hierarchy of sin, and what it essentially focuses on is your character's conscience or their conviction. In Vampire you have humanity, which is you lamenting your loss for your previous life and choosing to subsume the beast inside. Whereas at the same time you also have the conviction paths, which allow you to ride the wave of instinct and also allow you to have a firm moral code. Even though some of the so-called morals in the hierarchies of sin aren't exactly moral as we would perceive them, they do represent a tenet of faith almost, or a set of beliefs that your character might adhere to. If you've only ever played D&D, then I can fully understand it might be a bit of a tough concept to deal with, because Vampire is a social game. It's not a game that's like predicated on having lots of different adventures. You can have adventure, but it's really more of a social interaction. It's understanding what you've become. It's a really big mechanic that exists within it, and you can either completely ignore it, or you can embrace it to its fullest, and that's the best way, if you embrace it to its absolute fullest. I think the paths, I think the road of humanity, the path of night, they're all really important in understanding what your limitations are as a human being. How far are you willing to go? Because the path of humanity is something that, there are levels in it in which you are holier than thou. There is no human on earth that has never had a selfish thought, ever. But, that is the highest moral standard for the path of humanity, and you can reach it. It is attainable. But you had to become a monster in order to do so. At the same time, you have the most deplorable paths, but by being the most deplorable, by satiating the beast with such depravity, with such misery, with new experiences, or whatever your path's hierarchy of sin is, you control your baser instincts, that is the beast, the terrifying thing within, by constantly drip feeding it with immorality. It really shows you what your moral standard as a person is, because are you willing to go that far? The thing is that you have to be open to that concept of keeping your own moral standard alive as a person, but at the same time, are you going to attempt the path? Because if you attempt the path, you need to understand that you can't just switch yourself off. you have to kind of stay alert and be aware of what your own morals are, so that you can contrast them with the ones that your character is playing out. And this is the important thing. It's easy to turn those off. It's very easy to turn them off and just say it's a game, it's not real, none of this matters, and then just be, I don't know, the murdering sociopath that you want the character to be, or that you think you might want the character to be, and that's usually a bad thing. But if you are on a path that is quite immoral, then it only really has any relevance if you can understand the contrast between what you're thinking and what the character is thinking. And it's really good because it actually shows you that, you know, underneath it all, you were a person, because you're having to deal with the loss of one identity and one life, and how you cope with this new thing that has been afflicted on you. And you didn't really have a choice in the matter. You're forced then to come to terms with what you've become, because life is very much like that. You don't get choices all the time. Sometimes there are things that are afflicted on you, and you have to find a way to deal with it. And if you're a more mature gamer, Vampire is definitely one of the best games you can play, especially if you're looking for a good social interaction, a good game of self-reflection. There's a lot more self-reflection in Vampire than there is in Call of Cthulhu. At least, you know, with Call of Cthulhu, there's something to work towards. There is an end goal, which would be the discovery, because you're an investigator, and every investigation has to come to an end. So there is a goal to work towards. With D&D, it's the end of the adventure. There's a goal to work towards, and even though, as we're all quite aware, there is really no how do you win, because that's the outsider comment, isn't it? How do you win? My stock answer has always been to the how do you win question. You don't win, you just do a little better each time. Another thing that really gets under my skin is morals out of game, and I find them to be some of the hardest ones to deal with. Do you ever see those videos where they're like 10 ways to do this, or my top 5 reasons for doing that, or, you know, 10 methods to avoid your players doing X? BS, guys. All of it. BS. What it's saying is, right, you can get around it by doing this. You should never get around it, okay? After every game session, or, you know, if you need to take a break and discuss it then. But, you know, if there are problems that are arising, you need to first look internally. You need to look at yourself and saying, what am I doing that is making this happen? What am I doing that is making this go wrong? Why are my players doing the shit that they're doing? You know, you have to... There are ways of doing it, and yeah, some of them are quite valid, but they don't really tell you the important thing, and that is to reflect on why the things that are happening are happening. I think I saw one the other day about murder hobos, and it's like, well, my players are, you know, murder hobos, and this is how I would stop it. And it's like, that's how you would stop it, by giving them, I don't know, consequences, or, you know, giving them guards and stuff to deal with. Yeah, that would naturally happen because that is the way of it. But your best option, you know, the best option for anything like that is just to say, guys, why the hell are you murdering everything in sight? You know, take it out of game. Because if you do everything in game, even as a GM, you have rules to follow. You can't be unfair, because this is your big rule, and it's something that, you know, as a DM or GM or storyteller or anything like that, you know, you have rules to follow, you know, and you cannot be unfair, because that is your job. You are the rules arbiter. It's up to you to provide a story, okay, but there are certain things that you have to follow, because if you don't follow them, your players don't trust you. If your players don't trust you, they don't enjoy your game. I've been over this once before. I did a previous video on it. But, you know, as the old saying goes, everything has already been said. But because no one was listening, it had to be said again. If your players don't trust you, then they won't enjoy the game. Games that are based on adventure will be too open-ended. Or if you know, try to streamline that down, suddenly it becomes too linear. Games that are based on investigation, there'll be too much investigation. You try to cut it back, there'll be too little investigation. It's not that there's a problem with the game as such, it's a problem with the fact that they don't trust the GM. Trust your GM, and the GM needs to be honest about what their expectations are of the players. It's the only way. It's the absolute only way. Next time you see one of those 10 ways to do this, top 5 that, you know, best methods for doing X, take it all with a pinch of salt. All very well and good, you know, to deal with those things in game, and to a degree you should, but moreover than anything else, make sure you confront the players, or if you're a player and your DM is doing something weird, make sure you confront them between sessions. Like I said, even take a break if you need to, and discuss it then, somewhere out of game, because it's the best method. You get directly to the heart of the matter. You can't just... You can give someone all the warnings you like, you can give them as much nebulous stuff as, oh, your characters keep getting put in jail. They might not pick up on it. You can't expect everyone to do everything. I mean, I deal with some pretty daft people in my role-playing group. I mean, we've got a group of like 25 people or something ridiculous. So we've got 4 tables on the go at any one time in our club. And, you know, simply put, out of, you know, a group of that size, you know, there are going to be some just people who make some really daft decisions, and it's unavoidable. And it's not like we all haven't made a daft decision. I'm not, you know, I'm not saying, I'm not trying to say that not all role players are like that, because everyone's made a daft decision. Everyone has. But, you know, you've just got to start treating people like people. You know, you have to go about it and say, look, guys, I have no idea why you're doing what you're doing, but you know, you wouldn't get away with it in real life, so why are you trying it here?